Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. I am Alice Aubrey from Democratic Services. The subcommittee today is made up of councillors James Giles, Andrew Sillett and Andrew Wooldridge. The first item of business is the appointment of a chair for the meeting. May I ask subcommittee members to nominate a chair?
Nominate Councillor Sillett.
Seconded.
Thank you. That's agreed. Councillor Sillett is in the chair. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. This meeting is being broadcast live, recorded, and will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel. The agenda is available on the Council's website by following the links to Your Council, then Council Meeting Calendar, and you'll find this meeting on today's date. The quorum for this meeting is 3 members, and all will need to be present at all times. If any subcommittee member or the legal advisor lose connection, we'll pause to allow them to rejoin as soon as possible. To reduce feedback, could everyone turn off their microphone while not speaking? After the subcommittee has heard the submission, I'll ask if members have any questions on the submission. Members can also indicate that they wish to speak by using the chat function, but please don't use the chat function to ask questions of officers or members. Remember that all meeting participants on the video call will be able to see what has been entered in the chat. Please keep mobile phones in silent mode or switched off during the meeting. I'm Councillor Andrew Sillett, and I'll now introduce the other participants in the meeting. Councillor James Giles, Councillor Andrew Woolridge.
Morning.
Guy Bishop, Legal Advisor.
Hello.
Vinny Day, Licensing Officer.
Morning.
Naresh Das, the applicant, and I think he's being represented by Mr. Surendra Panchal today. Police Sergeant Jeremy Weston, from the Metropolitan Police. Louise Gallagher on behalf of the Acting Director of Public Health. We also have Mr. Ian Madel, and finally, but last but not least, Alice Aubrey, Democratic Services Officer, who opened the meeting. Does any member of the subcommittee have any pecuniary interest, non-registrable interest, or any other registrable interest to declare in relation to the application today?
No.
No.
Thank you. Can we confirm the meetings of the minutes held on April the 8th, 2025 as a correct record?
Agreed.
Yeah, seconded.
Thank you. I'll sign them at a later date. The parties have already been notified of the usual procedures for licensing hearings as set out on pages 5 to 7 of the agenda. Paragraph 57 on page 6 of the agenda pack deals with notification of the decision following the subcommittee's deliberations. This will firstly be confirmed by email later today, and full details and reasons will follow within 5 working days. Are there any objections to proceeding on the basis of those procedures? No. So let's move on to the hearing. I'll now call on Vinny Day, the Licensing Officer, to introduce the report on the application.
Thank you, Chair. This application for a new premises licence relates to Lloyd's Local Kingston, 12 Eden Street, Kingston upon Thames, KT1 1BB. The application was made on 24th of February 2025 by PR Retail Consultants Limited on behalf of Naresh Das. The application seeks the grant of a new premises licence to authorise the sale by retail of alcohol, off sales only, Sundays to Thursdays, 0900 to 2200 hours, and Fridays and Saturdays, 0900 hours to midnight. Relevant pages of the application form and a plan of the premises are attached at Annex 1. The proposed hours of operation are laid out in Annex 2. I confirm that the applicant has advertised the application by way of public notice displayed at the premises and in the local newspaper. The application has also been made available on the Council's website. I confirm that all responsible authorities received a copy of the application. Representations were received from the Metropolitan Police and the Council's Acting Director of Public Health in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance licensing objectives. These representations are attached at Annex 4. In accordance with the Council's licensing policy, 192 addresses were consulted in writing and informed that an application had been received. One valid representation was received from other persons. The representation makes reference to matters that relate to the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance licensing objectives. A copy of the representation is attached at Annex 5. Copies of all representations have been forwarded to the applicant and have been made available to the licensing subcommittee. The Metropolitan Police and the applicant have submitted additional material since the publication of the agenda for this hearing in support of their representation and in support of their application, respectively. The additional material is contained within the late material packs made publicly available prior to this hearing. A map showing the approximate location of the premises is attached as Annex 6, with photographs attached as Annex 7. In considering this report, the Licensing Subcommittee is required to take into account the Secretary of State's guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy, and the licensing objectives. The Council's Statement of Licensing Policy includes guidelines on trading hours, and these guideline hours are shown in the tables contained within Annex 8. The Licensing Subcommittee is asked to determine the application, having regard to the representations received and any evidence heard at the hearing, in accordance with the options set out in paragraph 14 of the licensing report. Thank you very much.
Members, do you have any questions for the officer?
Not at this time, thanks.
I now call on the applicant, Naresh Das, to give a summary of his application. Paragraph 47 on page 5 of the agenda pack deals with the length of time an applicant can speak. The applicant has up to 15 minutes to present his submission. Alice will advise you when you have 1 minute left and your time is up. So may I ask Mr. Das or his representative to give his presentation?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to be making the application today. It's a great pleasure to let you know that the applicant has held a personal license since 2014, and he has successfully operated multiple of licenses businesses under the name of Lloyd's local in Wandsworth, Tooting, and Wimbledon. I'm reading through this that we have already submitted to you to make it much more easier. The premises now under application located in Kingston is intended to operate as an exclusive wine shop. What we're trying to operate here at the Wimbledon is an exclusive wine shop. To reflect this tailored offering and promoting the responsible alcohol retailing, the applicant is willing not to sell miniatures and high-strength beers above 6% if the license is granted. We've added that those conditions, if you look into our representations of the conditions that we are proposing further to the application, which again we've presented to you, there are about 15 to 16 extra conditions that some of them are duplicated into our operating schedule, but there are some increased into that, like number 12, which you look at it on your proposed conditions, that we will not be selling any alcohol above 6%. Additionally, the premises will be have a professional security guard employed from 12 noon every day to the closing time at the premises. The security guard will be standing outside the shop, fully qualified. He will also be linked with the police. So if there was a matter arising anywhere, he would be reporting back straight to the police, which will ensure safety and welfare of the customers and the local community, promoting the public safety licensing objective. To further support this application, Chairman, we're submitting a set of proposed conditions which I've just mentioned to comply with. Lastly, we are submitting relevant documents which will be in place at the premise, such as the Challenge 25 posters that we've sent you, the employer's right to work. All employers their right to works will be checked, which is a huge problem at the moment going around. There will be Section 57 notice put up, incident book, refusal book. This clearly demonstrate that the applicant's commitment in promoting the four licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The area already is a PSPO. When we say it's a PSPO, means people are not allowed to drink under section 14.49. The designated public place order, the DPPO, has been replaced, the Public Space Protection in the Antisocial Behavior, Crime and Policy Act 2014. I'm reading through the guidance 14.49 of the section 182. So, Chairman, we feel, and I'm also looking at section 14.19 as regards to the need of the premises. There can be confusion about difference between the need for present the cumulative impact. The area is not in a cumulative impact area, so, and need is not something that we need to discuss today. I'm also looking at 10.15 of the guidance, section 182. Shops, stores, and supermarkets should normally be free to provide sales of alcohol for consumption of the premises at any times when this retail outlet is open for shopping, unless there are good reasons based on the licensing objectives. We do understand at the very instance the objections brought in by the police, licensing police at the premises, and we do understand the crime and disorder that the police are worried about, and near there is a brewery that we're worried about. But again, it's a PSPO. People are not allowed to drink in the area. We then have the security guard in front of the premises. We are exclusive. My client is exclusive, going to be going on to specialist wine section for the local people around the area. So we will be stocking wines which are going to be over about 100, 150 pounds a bottle. Even the whiskies that he's talking about are going to be highly rated whiskies for the local people. Mr. Das understands the local public around, or the local people community, has stayed in the area for a little while and does understand the people's requirements. The other thing that, Chair, we need to note is this shop has been closed since the COVID period. So it's a closed shop and it's now going to be open. It's going to be an exclusive shop in the area, which would bring the area's prominence and the areas. I have dealt with shops in the past in other areas where this kind of wine shop, specialist wine shops, and that introduced highly high class of people, which is the area in Kingston presently. So, Chairman, we feel that having looked at all that, the other thing that we are also proposing to the committee, that we have no problems in opening the shop later times, because we are not here to serve to the local street drinkers or anybody. So we do not wish to say that we need to open at 9 o'clock. We're happy to open even later than 9, what the committee feels, shop, because this is a shop where local people will be coming in at about maybe even 10, 11 o'clock to pick up a nice valued bottle of wine for their events or for their food that is going around. So that is the kind of customers that my client wishes to deal with. So opening times is not very essential that we should open at 9 if the committee feels, but we are saying that we are happy to open even at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning, because that is when the local people will be coming up to buy their wines. So, Chairman, I could go through the whole proposed conditions, but I'm sure you must have read through all the conditions that we've laid out. So I'm not going to go through them at this instance. If required, I'm happy to go through. My client is with me here, and I'm sure what I'll say today is definitely going to make a lot of difference in the area, in the Kingston area. So we feel the license be granted. We are happy to take any questions from the committee and any people presently. Mr. Das is with me. Sorry, Chair.
You're muted.
You're muted. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Panchal, if you finished your presentation, may I ask members if you have any questions to the applicant? Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Chair. So just to double check, I think you covered it in your presentation there, but just for the avoidance of doubt, in terms of the type of alcohol that will be sold on the premises, I know you mentioned wine there. Is it exclusively wine?
The shop wants to deal exclusive with wine, total exclusive with wine, but there will be some beers and ciders or present, but we are not going to stock any beers above 6%, because that is not what we are looking at. If you propose any 6% alcohol, you're attracting the street drinkers. So we do not want that kind of public to us. So there will be no beers above 6 beers and ciders above 6%.
No single cans.
And there will be no single can sold. So that leaves the local public away from local street drinkers, not the public, but the local street drinkers away from that. Mind you, we were also proposing that there will be from 12 noon a security guard present in front of the shop all the time. So an entrance for such kind of people will be avoided straight away.
Supplementary, Chair, if I may.
Please.
And so then you've mentioned beer and wine, but I just want, just for the avoidance of any doubt whatsoever, there will be no spirits sold on site.
Oh, there will be spirits. Sorry, spirits will be there. Sorry.
Right. Okay. So the only thing that you're, sorry, Chair, forgive me, it's too early in the morning.
The only thing offered is below 6% for beers and ciders.
Right, but it isn't then exclusively wines.
We'll be making the shop
Yeah, sure.
more attractive to wine store. But the rest of the stock, like the beer and cider, like that will be a side business. But the mainly will be attracting people for wine store.
It will be a specially selective wine store. It will be more onto the wines section, exclusive wines.
So 80% my concentration will be on
80% of the business would be more wine operated, wine, exclusive wine business.
I'm not sure if I'm that much clearer, but thank you, Chair. I can see Councillor Wardre just had his hand up. Maybe he can get some more information that will enlighten me.
Councillor Woolridge.
Well, thank you so much, Councillor Giles. Morning, everyone. To the applicant, what's going through my head, saying a little bit about wine and the fine points of it. You've suggested that that only expensive wines and whiskies will be sold. Given that price point is not enforceable, nor a recognised mitigation under licensing objectives, how do you believe this claim addresses the concerns raised regarding public nuisance and crime in this location? I think that is what Councillor Giles may have wanted to suggest. I just had a little bit more time to put my notes. So, yeah, thank you.
Yes, I can explain that. When you look at the public nuisance, is normally the public nuisance is caused by street drinkers who normally congregate in the area. There is a memorial garden around there, and then normally their idea is to buy a can of beers, or ciders, and drink in the area. So we're not catering for those kind of clientele. That is what we are saying to ourselves. They tend to drink anything, the ciders which are 7 to 8% in alcohol volume, alcohol content. So that will avoid the public nuisance. Plus, we're also controlling the public nuisance by making sure the guard, who's going to be the security person, who's going to be present Monday to Sunday from 12 o'clock onwards in front of the shop, that will stop the public nuisance around in the area.
Mr. Panchal, I have a question, if I may.
Yes, yes. So yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Councillor Woolridge.
That's okay. I'm quite
You have a
supplementary.
supplementary.
Apologies. That's very good, but doesn't actually answer the question. You've suggested that only expensive wines and whiskies will be sold. Given that price point, it's not enforceable. I mean, that's, forgive me, I'm a pedant. That's what I've asked.
Normally the ASB, when you say public nuisance, is the public nuisance created.
I have not said public nuisance. It's again, apologies, put you under pressure. It's the price point.
Yeah, again, the price of the wines and the price of the spirits is not going to be something that the street drinkers or the public who create the nuisance going to be affordable. That is what we are trying to achieve, to make sure that the wines that we bring are exclusive. Exclusive wines are not cheaper. We're not selling bottles of wines which are £4 or £5 a bottle. We're looking at somewhere around £12 to £15 a bottle of wine, a good quality wine that we are talking about. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
I suppose it would do if you were selling £15 bottles of cider. Yeah.
We're not selling a cider. 15...
No. Okay, well, you were selling £15 bottles of 6% alcohol. That would then hold water, or shall we say, hold alcohol. That's great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
A question for me, Mr. Panchal.
Yes, thank you, sir.
You've mentioned that you'd be willing to compromise on your opening hours. What about your closing hours? Because I imagine, and I will ask the police officer present, that a lot of the problem drinking is people coming out of venues late in the evening and wishing to stock up on a bit of beer, then going down to the river to drink. So that's certainly one of the areas that I'm under the impression that the police are anxious to avoid. Would you be interested in compromising your closing, your later hours, or do you feel that's essential for the business?
Chairman, we are happy even to compromise on the closing times. We are happy to close at 10:30 if that gives you the confidence in running, because we're not here to keep it open till 12 o'clock to make sure that we would get people late in the time. So we are happy to close at 10:30 if that
my current store closes even 8:30.
The current store that he runs in Wimbledon is in Wimbledon
and Wandsworth High Street.
And Wandsworth High Street.
I close at 8:30.
They close at 8:30
because we don't want any trouble later. Because it's not even nicer for me.
Can you speak loudly?
Yeah. So
I can hear you, Mr. Das. Yeah.
So I don't really like because late at night I know we get a bad public. Anyone wants to come in earlier, they're taking nice bottle of wine or whiskey home. I know for the dinner, which we do sell it, but we don't open after 8:30 because we always get a bad crowd after sort of 8-9 o'clock when it gets darker. So we're really not interested to be open after. But looking at this area, because it's a nice area, so we were planning to open till 10 weekdays and 12 p.m. Weekends. But I'm happy to compromise even weekdays 8 p.m. and weekend 10 p.m. If that's gonna bring the possibility of granting a off license there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Das. Councillor Giles, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a follow-up, really, based on what the applicant has said, or the applicant's representative, regarding closing times of their current unit. I just wonder, given that one closes at 8:30, why the suggestion is here, or the application here, is to close, well, either 2 or 2.5 hours later, depending on if we're judging it based on what was applied for versus what's been suggested as a compromise. Why the extra 2 hours?
Sorry, I'm sorry, Councillor Giles. I'm not.
What's the question for us?
Question for us. I'm a little bit confused about the question.
Okay, let me try again. You've said that your client operates another premises in a neighbouring borough for which the closing time is 8:30 p.m. I would hazard a guess, although I haven't spoken to them beforehand, that the objectors may not feel as strongly as they do if the application were to have your proposed unit in Kingston also close at 8:30 p.m. And so my question, therefore, is what is the rationale for you applying for a license to stay open on a Friday and Saturday until 11 p.m? Again, I'm trying to get to, I think, the heart of the prevention of crime and disorder issues that have been raised. So what's the rationale here for 11 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. instead of the 8:30, which one presumes works relatively well for your client in Wandsworth High Street?
We could close at 8:30 here in this area if we feel that the clientele is good enough to give us the business up to 8:30. Our idea was to make it open till 10 o'clock, not even till 12, to be honest to you. We're happy with 10 o'clock, but it all depends on how we're going to be catering for the local people in Kingston. While we've learned that although we have a license up to 11 o'clock in Wandsworth, but we're still closing at 8:30, having realized that the business that we're getting till 8:30 is sufficient enough for the local people that we are dealing with, and we do not want to deal with the street drinkers, which are later on. And we would also do the same if if the license was granted in Kingston here, and we would propose today that we would close at 10 o'clock. And if we were dealing in the area and we were happy enough till 8:30, we would close at 8:30.
Councillor Giles, you've got a supplementary question?
I do. I'm sorry to press the point, Chair. I've now heard 3 different closing times. The application says 11. I've then heard you say a compromise to 10:30. I've now heard you say you plan on closing at 10. Could I hear maybe from your client who's in the room with you just exactly what time he proposes to close? Because I'm hearing a lot of different times here.
Okay, I'll ask the client to emphasize on what the time he's looking at. That'll give us a more better answer.
The new timing was, I think it was a question from Councillor Andrew. He said what compromise would be if we can close earlier instead of opening late. So my answer to that was that's why the timing was different. Even though I'm happy to close 8 p.m. To sell alcohol 8 p.m. So the last serving of alcohol will be 8 p.m. Weekdays, and then Friday, Saturday we can do it 10 p.m. So Sunday till Thursday we can close the sale of alcohol from 8 p.m. and Friday, Saturday we can close at 10 p.m.
And I'm so sorry, through you, Chair, again. So I heard you say there, instead of opening later. So are you suggesting that either you, instead of opening late, so are you either suggesting that you open early and close early, or open late and close late?
So 9 o'clock. So 9 weekdays. So we can.
Now we're talking about the opening hours.
Opening hours.
That's right. Yes.
So I'm happy to start at 11 a.m. In the morning to sell alcohol. Weekdays from I would call it from Sunday to Thursday. And then 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. Friday, Saturday.
Thank you very much. That's very useful clarity. Thank you.
Members, any more questions? In that case, thank you. We'll move on to the responsible authorities. As set out in the report, representations were received from the Metropolitan Police and the Council's Acting Director of Public Health. We have representatives from both in attendance today. First, I'll ask Police Sergeant Jeremy Weston to speak. You have 5 minutes, and Alice will advise you when you've got a minute left and your time is up.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today on behalf of the Metropolitan Police Service. We strongly object to the granting of a premises licence for this proposed off-licence on Eden Street, Kingston upon Thames, on the grounds that it would undermine the prevention of crime and disorder and public nuisance, two key licensing objectives. Eden Street is part of a well-documented crime hotspot with frequent reports of antisocial behaviour, street drinking and violent incidents. In my previous representations, I've pointed to the levels of crime and ASB in this area. The introduction of an additional off-licence in this location would only aggravate these issues by increasing the availability of alcohol in an area already struggling with crime and ASB. Just a short distance from the proposed site is War Memorial Gardens, which has become a focal point for antisocial behaviour, including public intoxication, drug-related activity and ASB. Some of these incidents are directly linked to the consumption of alcohol, in my opinion. Granting a licence in such close proximity would only serve to worsen the situation, making it even more difficult for police and local authorities to manage the existing problems. The committee must consider whether increasing alcohol availability aligns with the need to reduce ASB in this public space. Most critically, there is an active public spaces protection order in place at Eaglebury Wharf, specifically designed to combat alcohol-related antisocial behaviour. The PSPO prohibits the consumption of alcohol in this area, yet the proposed off-licence would be situated within easy reach, effectively undermining the order's purpose. The PSPO exists for a reason, do not undermine it. This committee must ask itself, why was the PSPO imposed in this area in the first place? The answer is clear, because there was a persistent, documented issue with alcohol-related antisocial behaviour, public disorder and crime. The PSPO was not introduced lightly. It was a necessary measure to protect the community from harm. Allowing an off-licence so close to this PSPO would completely contradict its purpose. It would provide easy access to alcohol for those already causing problems, making enforcement harder and rendering the PSPO ineffective. If this licence is granted, we risk seeing increased street drinking, more antisocial behaviour, greater strain on police and council resources. This committee has rejected similar applications in the past in this area, and for good reason. Previous objections were based on clear evidence that additional off-licences in this area lead to more crime, more disorder and more harm to the community. We must ask ourselves, why were those objections upheld? I suspect because the risks were real and the concerns were justified. Nothing has changed since then. In fact, the problems remain, which is why the PSPO is still in force. Granting this licence would ignore those lessons and repeat the same mistakes. Although I cited two objectives to the law objectives, the law requires you to consider four key licensing objectives: prevention, crime and disorder, where we will see more alcohol sales; ensuring public safety. The PSPO was introduced because safety was at risk; preventing public nuisance, street drinking and ASB will increase; protecting children from harm. Do we really want more alcohol readily available near areas where young people gather? This application fails on all counts. The MPS firmly believes that granting this licence would directly contradict the licensing objectives by undermining the PSPO at Eaglebury Wharf, aggravating antisocial behaviour in Memorial Gardens and Eden Street. I urge the committee to refuse this application in the interest of upholding the licensing objectives. There are already sufficient licensed premises in the area, and adding another would only aggravate existing issues rather than contribute positively to Kingston upon Thames. I'm happy to assist and answer any questions you may have.
Members, any questions to the police officer? Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Weston, does the police's view change at all on this application in view of the applicant's proposed amendment to their opening hours, namely 11 AM to 8 PM on weekdays and 11 AM to 10 PM Friday, Saturday?
No, so our stance remains it's a full objection based on drinking issues relating to drink alcohol is persistent throughout the day.
Thank you.
Councillor Woolridge, do you have any questions to the police officer?
Yeah, yes. Apologies. I'm thinking of my notes. Given your concerns around antisocial behaviour and the PC and the PSPO in place near Eagle Brewery Wharf, would you clarify how granting this licence, even with standard conditions, would likely undermine the effectiveness of current enforcement measures?
Because in my experience, 6 to 7 years working in Kingston, people at that particular site, namely the PSPO Eagle Brewery Wharf, will purchase alcohol from surrounding shops and sit up there, which would just aggravate the ongoing issues we have.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. I will now ask Louise Gallagher from Public Health, who is attending on behalf of the Acting Director of Public Health, to speak. You have 5 minutes, and Alice will advise you when you've got a minute left and your time's up.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously we've submitted the full representation, so I just wanted to highlight a few reasons for our objection, and obviously one of them being the PSPO in Eagle Brewery Wharf, and having a detrimental effect on that. Also, off sales of alcohol in the locality, encouraging preloading and also encouraging people who've already consumed alcohol on a night out. You know, preloading before a night out actually significantly higher the total alcohol consumption over a night out, so encouraging people to drink more. And from a public health perspective, just wanted to sort of highlight as well that in Kingston we did a needs assessment which highlighted Kingston being the 3rd highest rate of hospital admissions for alcohol-related conditions in the under 40s age group, and the highest rate in London for admissions by intentional self-poisoning by alcohol. So, and also in Kingston in 22-23, there were 2,333 admissions to hospital where alcohol-related conditions were the primary diagnosis. And also in Kingston, you know, we are spending a high amount of money on prevention and treatment on drug and alcohol use. So those were the main things I just wanted to highlight from our submission. Thank you.
Members, any questions to Ms. Gallagher?
Yeah, perhaps. Hi, it's Andrew here. Hi. Could you perhaps flesh out a little bit more about how would this license add to existing alcohol-related harm in this part of Kingston? And then the supplementary is actually about the late night access to alcohol links to hospital admissions or incidents. Which I know you've covered briefly, but a little bit more would be grateful.
So I'm not sure I've got that data in detail about the timings. It might be something our data team could supply you. But it's the availability of alcohol. Obviously, the more available alcohol is in the borough, then obviously people will be able to access alcohol. So from a public health point of view, it's just, you know, having the availability and the accessibility of so much alcohol in the borough is really, I guess, what I'm trying to say in those points.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank
Many
you.
thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Giles.
Chair, I wonder if you might permit me, I've just been looking through the hearing procedures. I wonder if you might permit me actually just to ask one more question of the applicant. I don't believe there's anything in the procedures that prohibits it. I'll ask the question and you tell me whether or not it's in order. Just because while I've been watching and listening to the good folks speaking, I decided to try and take a look for the applicant's other premises in Wandsworth. And I just wondered if I could get some clarity on the type of premises that it is, because a cursory glance on Google Maps would suggest that it's a mobile phone and laptop repair centre. In any case, certainly not exclusive wines. And so just some clarity on the type of premises that they run on Wandsworth High Street would be useful, especially if this is in fact the first such premises of the nature they are proposing.
May I just ask our Democratic Services Officer, Ms. Aubrey, is that question permitted under our procedure?
I'm going to defer to Guy, I'm afraid, Guy.
Guy, you're on mute at the moment.
I knew you'd do that. Councillor Giles, you're going into an area outside of the issues that have been raised in the paperwork, but they have been raised by the applicant in speaking this morning. If the applicant wants to or has a response to that, I would have thought that can be given. Mr. Panchal.
Sorry, I'm muted myself. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Giles. Yes, we are happy to let you know what's happening. I know you've gone through with the way the Wandsworth. Is it Wandsworth that you looked into? It's Wimbledon.
Wandsworth High Street.
Wandsworth High Street. Yeah. We are happy to let you know what we're doing at Wandsworth and why we are successful at Wandsworth, and we are sure that we'll be successful in this area also. But my client can explain to you what's happening at Wandsworth.
Right. So Wandsworth is completely different location. So it's a high street, so we're closer to city. Now we have recently, in the last couple of years, we got a TLS visa center open there. So on that side, we are mainly concentrated. That's where the business looks slightly different, because we are mainly doing printing and photographs in that area. However, the business has been there since 90s. So the vendor prior to me was actually dealing with off license, but we have transformed the business during the requirement of what customers were looking for. So that's why we have moved more towards mobile repairs and printing and visa photos. Now the Kingston is completely different type of area, which I live myself in Kingston Borough. That side we need because I looked through the areas. We don't have any specific spirit and wine shops. We used to be odd bins and sort of specific wines. They've all been closed down. So my main motive would be to attract people for exclusive wines. However, I'll be stocking up the rest of the small groceries or confectionaries and the rest. But mainly I'll be concentrating on wines and spirit, expensive, the exclusive ones. If that's any clear to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for deviating slightly from the script, but I think it was important to get clarity.
Thank you.
I can stress something more on that, if that helps the committee.
Please do.
That you could see that why the client in Wimbledon, sorry, was Wandsworth, why he moved towards the visa and the mobile repairs, because that was the need of the local people, which was important. So off license became a little bit of a secondary rather than a primary sales. And here we are looking at different. We are saying, right, we got a people here in Kingston who are looking for the odd bins have been closed. There is a Sainsbury down the road, and the people could easily get access to the alcohol they want to for the PSPO area that it is in. But we're not aiming at that. A security guard at the shop from 12 o'clock to closing time is not cheap. It's security guards today are £14 an hour. So we're happy to invest into that security guard. It will be conditioned into our license, and if we didn't have a security guard, it would be a breach of the license. Under Section 135, we could land up in front of the committee and losing the license. So we are spending that money to create the wine specialist area, whereby we would have the right people coming into the shop and the right people moving away. And that is why we are spending that money.
Thank you, Mr. Panchal. I think you've answered Councillor Giles's question.
Yeah.
May I move on to other persons now? As set out in the report, one valid representation was received. Copies of the representations are attached to Annex 4. Ian Madle, the other person, is in attendance. I'll now call upon Mr. Madle to present his submission. Mr. Madle, you've got 5 minutes, and Alice will advise you when you've got a minute left and your time is up.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sillett. My name is Ian Madle, and I've represented residents at the Queen's Reach residential apartment block on the Riverside Promenade in various formal capacities since 2007. And subsequently our network expanded with the formation of a residents association in 2012 to include residents on the adjacent moorings following the revamp of the public space known as Eaglebury Wharf in 2010, which is next to our building on the Riverside Promenade. For the purposes of this hearing, I should state that I'm the principal director of the company which holds the freehold title to Queen's Reach. Doesn't sound grand, it just means we did a collective buyout. But that gives me a role as the overall landlord on behalf of all the flat leaseholders and residents living in the building. I've also been a member of the Kingston Town Ward panel since late 2021, and I was the chair of the panel throughout 2022 and 2023. Eaglebury Wharf is immediately to the north of our building on the Riverside Promenade, and the applicant's premises at 12 Eden Street are within very easy walking distance of the public space. In follow-up to my email objecting to the application and also emails from other residents in the vicinity, I wish to emphasise why it is absolutely critical to the local residential community that the application for an off-sales licence should not be approved. Eaglebury Wharf has been recognised as a top hotspot for antisocial behaviour in Kingston for many years, and most particularly since 2010. The space acts well generally as an amenity for the community to relax and enjoy the riverside in the daytime, by which I mean through the mornings until the late afternoon. But depending on the weather in the months of March through October, from late afternoon to the early hours of the morning, it takes on an altogether totally different character. Unfortunately, it acts as a very popular focal point for teenagers and young people in large numbers, including, importantly, from people well outside our borough. They consume alcohol to excess, take drugs, cannabis, which we smell frequently, nitrous oxide in abundance, and some cocaine. And this leads to very rowdy behaviour, shouting, and combined with the playing of loud music, which unchecked can go on until the early hours of the morning. In the initial years post-2010, we often had up to circa 120 people in the vicinity until past midnight, and sometimes until 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning, and the police can verify that. The lives of around 150 people in the vicinity, that's in Queen's Reach, on the moorings, and in the South Block of Charter Quay, have been seriously impacted over the last 15 years. Trying to get better control over the antisocial behaviour has over the last 15 years consumed a huge amount of effort by the Metropolitan Police, Kingston First, and various offers and functions within the local authority, plus of course the residential community. So what exactly are the impacts on the residential community? There are several categories of antisocial behaviour we experience, but I would say the first one, which is most relevant to this hearing, is the very high levels of persistent alcohol and drugs-induced noise disturbance from rowdy behaviour and loud music, up to 7 nights per week in good weather. This has a severe impact on the ability of residents to relax and enjoy their home life. Plus, it causes disturbed sleep and at times sleep deprivation, dangerously so, I should say, from my own experience having to drive afterwards. Plus, it creates general feelings of unease and insecurity. To give you an idea of just how serious the problem has been in the past, There's been a high turnover of tenants at Queensreach over the last 15 years because of the impacts on their quality of life. Some of the flats are owned by private landlords, and they complain bitterly about this.
1 minute left.
Okay, some residents have felt they have to go out in the evenings to get some relief. At the most extreme, some residents have even checked into local hotels at weekends to catch up on lost sleep and get some relief. The second and relevant ASB issue is if you have large numbers of people congregating and drinking, they need access to toilets, and in the late evening there are none in the vicinity. For many years, the private courtyard of Queensreach was the unofficial public toilet for Eagle Brewery Wharf, which led in the end to us installing security gates to replace the former lever barrier at a cost of circa £30,000. Of course, this just means people now urinate in the surrounding alleys, which is also very obnoxious. But we've already talked about the PSPO. You know, it was created in 2020. There was a DPPO, by the way, in 2014 that specifically addresses alcohol, subsequently superseded by the PSPO, introduced in 2020 and then renewed in 2023. Okay. Because I'm limited by time, I'm trying to cut one or two things out I want to say. But I have to say, it is very important that we have a whole holistic approach. A lot of efforts being made to address these issues by RBK, by the Metropolitan Police and ourselves. They only need one weak point in the whole chain and the whole thing will break down. And what's on the table in front of you now is a very huge high risk to all of that. And just on the policing side, I mean, it has been suggested PSPO is banned. It doesn't actually quite like that. What it means is you are allowed to drink there, but if the police judge that you're causing nuisance, they can demand that you stop. It just gives the police powers that they don't ordinarily have in ordinary everyday law to act effectively. And that's big trouble for the police. That's why you needed the PSPO, because they can take measures anyway, but they're very complex if they don't have the PSPO. And I should add that the police, it is very important. I should add that the police are effective when they have the capacity on any given day to respond to ASB reports, and there are hundreds of those reports. I've got you can't really see it. I've got a list here. There's about 200 reports on there of online reports and calls to 101. Okay, we log them all, but it needs to be understood that the police can't be there all the time. It's unrealistic, yeah, and you can't even expect them to attend every time there's issues. It's unrealistic. So you have to try and design out the problems at source if you can, which is why it's so important that we don't introduce yet more outlets for alcohol. And I have to say, I don't understand the business model of the applicant at all. I mean, if he's going for high-end wines, I don't understand why he has to sell beers and cider at all. You know, it's
sorry,
just,
sorry, Mr. Madel, I'm going to have to ask you to stop there just because we have.
Okay, I'll start. Yeah,
Mr. Madel, I think you've painted a very clear picture within your limited time there. Do any members have questions for this person? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to closing statements. I'll call upon Police Sergeant Weston to sum up your representation if you wish to do so.
In my closing statement is quite simple. It's just nonsensical to allow an off licence to operate within a 2-minute walking distance from a PSPO and other problematic areas.
Thank you very much. Is that the conclusion? Then, Louise, could you please sum up if you wish to do so?
Nothing to add, just that obviously we still stand by the objection. Thank you.
Mr. Madel, you've got an opportunity to sum up your representation, should you wish. I believe you're on mute, Mr. Madel.
Sorry, you should be able to hear me now.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, Louise touched on the really key point, and that's preloading. And that is what happens at Eagle Brewery Wharf. You know, people stock up on alcohol in the hours when they got access to it, and then what happens? Once they've settled on Eagle Brewery Wharf in the evenings, they stay there all night. And I don't want to go into the details. You're probably all aware that there's a revamp of Eagle Brewery Wharf actually going on at the moment. And my hope, and it is just a hope, that it might change the demographic a little bit as to who uses the space late in the evenings. And I think we all hope that. Okay, but there's no guarantee of that. And we have conflicting requirements. You know, they're reinstituting lighting in the area, which I understand, because there's concerns about violence against women and girls, and I understand that. But we know from experience that if you have lighting on, it attracts people. And there will be enough lighting there to attract people. So in the short term, I'm fully anticipating, I'm anticipating I've probably got a fight for another year or two coming up when the area reopens, to get things back onto to a better degree of control again. But anyway, we'll meet that when it comes.
Thank you, Mr. Madel. Finally, could I ask the applicant to make any closing remarks?
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm going to be quick and as quick as possible. Chairman, you heard about the antisocial, you heard about the PSPO, you heard about the preloading. We've already mentioned to you that we're not going to be opening. We are flexible in opening hours. Again, we're not going to be, when you say preloading and teenagers around, we're not catering for that kind of people that we are selling the alcohol. We are not going to be selling any strong beers or anything. We're not going to be open till late, as we've just suggested the new hours that we proposed to you. Regarding the police, we understand there is a problem for the police to be everywhere when it comes to the government grants and whatever to the police for doing that. And we are providing that safety by having a security guard from 12 o'clock onwards who would be connected with the police and who would be monitoring the area from the opening times at the premises. So that is covered again. Antisocial behavior will also be covered by the security guard who's going to be there. There will be extra cameras in front of the shop that will provide quite a good evidence for future references if required. So we've covered most of the things that are concerned with Mr. Medal and the police in helping how we would be running the premises during this period. So, Chairman, we feel that at the moment we are assuming, and if there was a problem in the future, we would be in front of the committee again, and we would have our license revoked. So there is a second chance for all the people in bringing us back in front of you to say, look, you did not, whatever you proposed, did not carry out or breached, so hence you will be losing your license. And that is not what we want. Our client has worked in Wandsworth and worked in other areas and succeeded and make sure. So we are going to be having to succeed. The shop is closed since COVID, so we're going to bring it back to life. The area we are going to be serving to people of the Kingston who deserve to be served. The old bins closed down, so we're going to be bringing that business back to the people. We're not. You've seen in our presentation. We're not catering for the teenagers or the street drinkers. So, Chairman, that's why we feel that we should be given a chance to serve the local Kingston people.
Thank you, Mr. Pancher. And thank you all for attending. The subcommittee will now withdraw to make its decision. The decision will be confirmed to all parties by email, and the full decision notice with reasons will then be sent to all parties within 5 working days. Please can I ask members of the subcommittee to reconvene in the decision meeting, well, now really, for the decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.